Talmuth stood in the grand hall of the Galactic Concordat, his feathers rustling with nervous energy. The crystalline walls reflected light in 1,000 colors, but he barely noticed. His superior, High Arbiter Vansilla, had just given him an assignment that would change his life forever. "You will observe the conflict between the Kryn Empire and the humans," Vansilla said, her voice calm and measured. "Document everything. We need records for the War Crimes Tribunal." Talmuth had documented 47 wars across the galaxy. He was good at his job. He watched battles from a safe distance, recorded the facts, and never got involved. That was the rule. Observers stayed neutral. Observers stayed safe. "The humans will lose quickly," Vansilla continued. "They are primitives, only 80 years in space. The Kryn will crush them in weeks, maybe days." Talmuth nodded. He had already reviewed the files. Humans controlled only 12 colonies across 7 star systems. They fought among themselves constantly. Their technology was centuries behind the Kryn. The Insectoid Empire had conquered 23 star systems in 10 years. They were efficient killers. "When do I leave?" Talmuth asked. "Tomorrow. The Kryn have already sent their demands." The humans refused to surrender. Vansilla made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Foolish creatures. They don't understand what's coming." That night, Talmuth studied everything he could find about humans. They were strange beings. Short lives, barely 100 years. Emotional and irrational. They had spent most of their history fighting each other over land, resources, and ideas. Their homeworld had seen thousands of wars, but they had also created art, music, stories. They cared for their sick and elderly. They kept animals as companions. Talmuth found them confusing. How could a species be so violent and so gentle at the same time? He packed his equipment and boarded the observer ship. It was small but fast, with powerful shields and diplomatic immunity. No one would attack him. War had rules, and observers were protected under galactic law. The journey took 3 days. Talmuth spent the time reviewing tactical data. The Kryn were bringing 8 hive fleets to the first target, a human colony called New Jeju. The colony had 2.3 million people, mostly farmers and scientists. They were terraforming the planet, making it more like Earth. The Human Defense Force had only 14 ships. Talmuth did the calculations. The humans were outnumbered 8-1. They had no chance. When he arrived at New Jeju, Talmuth expected chaos, panic, people trying to flee. Instead, he found something else entirely. The spaceport was busy but organized. Civilian ships were leaving in orderly lines, carrying children and the elderly to safety, but many people were staying. They were building barricades, training with weapons, preparing to fight. Talmuth's ship landed, and he was met by a human military officer. The man was tall, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore a uniform with the name Han Do-yun stitched across the chest. "Welcome, observer," Han said in perfect Concordat standard language. "I'm Commander Han. I'll be your liaison." "Thank you, Commander. I'm here to document the battle." Talmuth studied the human's face. "You know you cannot win. We know the odds." Han's expression didn't change. "We're going to fight anyway." "Why?" "Your people could surrender. The Concordat might negotiate better terms." "The Concordat isn't here to help us." Han's voice was flat. "You're here to watch us die." "That's different." Talmuth had no answer for that. It was true. The Concordat wouldn't intervene. They never did. They just watched and recorded and held tribunals after everything was over. Han took him to the command center, a building buried deep underground. Inside, dozens of humans worked at computer stations. Screens showed the positions of ships, weapon systems, and planetary defenses. Everything was organized, professional. "How long until the Kryn arrive?" Talmuth asked. 42 hours, a young woman said without looking up from her screen. She had short black hair and wore a flight suit. "I'm Lieutenant Bayek Jiwan, fighter pilot." "You're very calm," Talmuth observed. Beck finally looked at him. She smiled, but it was a strange smile, fierce. "I'm terrified. We all are. But fear doesn't help. So we do our jobs." Over the next day, Talmuth interviewed more humans. He met Captain Kang Minho, a scarred veteran who commanded the ground forces. Kang had fought in something called the Mars Rebellion. He didn't talk about it much. "War is hell," Kang told him. "But sometimes you have to go through hell to protect what you love." Talmuth met Dr. Yoon Hajin, a civilian doctor. She ran the main hospital. Talmuth asked why she didn't evacuate. Someone has to stay and help the wounded, she said simply. That someone is me. You'll probably die, Talmeth said. He didn't mean to be cruel. He was just stating facts, probably. Yoon smiled sadly. But I'll save as many as I can first. Talmeth didn't understand these humans. They knew they would lose. They knew they would die. But they stayed. They fought. They smiled and joked with each other. The night before the battle, he watched human soldiers in the mess hall. They were eating, laughing, telling stories. One group was singing a song. The melody was beautiful and sad at the same time. That's Arirang, Commander Han said, sitting down next to Talmeth. An old song from Earth, from Korea. It's about longing and hope. They're singing before battle. It reminds them what they're fighting for. Home, family, each other. Your people are strange, Talmeth said. Yes, Han agreed. We are. The Kryn fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 8 massive hive ships, each carrying thousands of fighters and warriors. Their ships were biological, grown rather than built. They looked like enormous insects, all chitin and razor edges. Talmeth watched from the command center. Commander Han stood at the main console, calm and focused. Around him, his crew worked quietly. The Kryn sent a message: surrender immediately or be destroyed. Han's response was simple: no. The battle began. Kryn ships opened fire, and the sky above New Jeju lit up with weapons fire. Human shields flared and held. Talmeth checked the power readings. The shield shouldn't be holding. Human reactors weren't powerful enough. How are you doing that? He asked. We overloaded the reactors, Han said. We'll burn them out in an hour, but we only need 40 minutes. 40 minutes for what? Han smiled. It was not a nice smile. You'll see. Lieutenant Bayek and her fighter squadron launched. Talmeth watched on the screens as they flew directly into the Kryn formation. It was suicide. The Kryn had hundreds of fighters, but the humans didn't fight like any species Talmeth had ever seen. They used asteroids for cover. They flew through debris fields that should have torn their ships apart. They rammed enemy fighters when they ran out of missiles. One human pilot's ship was damaged and losing air. Instead of retreating, the pilot aimed his dying ship at a Kryn cruiser and crashed into its engines. The cruiser exploded. Why would he do that? Talmeth whispered. Because it worked, Han said quietly, and because he knew we needed every advantage. 3 human destroyers broke formation. They were heavily damaged, shields failing. Talmeth thought they were retreating. They weren't. They accelerated directly at the Kryn capital ships, at full speed. The Kryn tried to stop them, but it was too late. 3 destroyers, 3 Kryn capital ships, all destroyed in massive explosions. Those ships had crews, Talmeth said, his voice shaking. Hundreds of people. Yes. Han's face was hard. They volunteered. Every one of them. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Kryn landed ground forces. Captain Kang's soldiers met them in the cities and forests. Civilians joined the fighting. Old people, teenagers, anyone who could hold a weapon. The Kryn weren't prepared for that. In their culture, non-soldiers didn't fight. But humans didn't seem to make that distinction. Everyone fought. Dr. Yoon's hospital was overwhelmed. Talmeth went there and watched her work. She operated on human and Kryn soldiers alike, saving anyone she could. Her hands were steady even as explosions shook the building. When the battle finally ended, the Kryn withdrew. They had lost 60% of their attack force. The humans had won, but the cost was terrible. 58 human ships destroyed. 340,000 colonists dead. The survivors moved through the ruins, searching for wounded, putting out fires, mourning their dead. Talmeth found Commander Han standing on a balcony, looking at the burning city. The commander's face was wet with tears. We won, Talmeth said. Did we? Han wiped his eyes. Look at what it cost. That night, Talmeth wrote his first report. His hands shook as he typed. The humans fight with a ferocity that borders on insanity. They don't calculate odds. They don't surrender when logic demands it. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. I don't understand them, but I'm beginning to suspect I have badly underestimated them. This will not be the quick conquest the Concordat predicted. The Kryn have made a terrible mistake. They've gone to war with a species that doesn't know how to quit. Talmeth stopped typing and looked at his reflection in the dark screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something other than professional detachment. He felt afraid, not of the Kryn, but of what this war would show him about the humans and about himself. 6 months had passed since New Jeju. Talmeth had transferred between 12 different human military units, documenting the war as it spread across human space. The Kryn Empire, embarrassed by their initial defeat, had committed everything. 12 hive fleets now pressed into human territory. Talmeth had changed. He no longer slept well. His reports grew longer and more personal. The Concordat had sent messages asking him to remain objective. He stopped reading them. He was currently aboard Titan Station, a massive human outpost orbiting Saturn. The station housed 50,000 military personnel and civilians. It was also surrounded by 3 Kryn hive fleets. The siege had lasted 3 weeks. "We're down to emergency rations," Commander Han told him. Han had been promoted to admiral after New Jeju. He commanded the station's defense. His face was thinner now, his eyes harder. "Another week and we'll be out of food completely." The Concordat could pressure the Kryn to allow supply ships, Talmeth suggested, though he knew it was pointless. The Concordat is doing nothing. Han didn't sound angry, just tired. They never do. Talmeth had met new humans during these months. Admiral Choi Hyaman commanded Earth's main fleet. They called her the Steel Phoenix. She was brilliant and ruthless. Talmeth had watched her sacrifice 20 ships to save a colony of 30,000 people. She never hesitated. There was Ambassador Park Seojin, who traveled to the Concordat every month begging for aid. He was always refused. Always polite. Always ignored. Talmeth had stopped attending those meetings. He couldn't watch anymore, and there was Private Nam Junho, a young Marine who had enlisted after his sister disappeared on New Jeju. He was 19 years old. Too young for war, but then Talmeth had learned that humans thought everyone was too young for war. They fought anyway. "Why did you join?" Talmeth had asked Nam during a quiet moment. "My sister was on New Jeju. I don't know if she's alive." Nam cleaned his rifle as he spoke. "So I'm here to make sure other people's sisters don't have to wonder. That's why we fight." Now on Titan Station, Nam was one of 800 defenders still able to fight. They were outnumbered 100 to 1. The Kryn had landed ground forces. They were slowly taking the station level by level. Talmeth accompanied a human patrol. Captain Kang, now General Kang, led them personally. He was older, slower, but no less determined. "Observer," Kang said as they moved through a dark corridor. "When this is over, tell them we didn't surrender." "That matters. You could surrender now," Talmeth said. "Save lives." Kang stopped walking. "We have 300 Kryn prisoners in the medical bay. If we surrender, the Kryn will execute them for being captured. We don't abandon prisoners. Not ours, not theirs." That was another thing Talmeth had learned. Humans treated enemy prisoners well. They gave them food, medical care, and dignity. It made no tactical sense. It wasted resources. But they did it anyway. Dr. Yoon was on Titan Station too. She had volunteered to stay when the siege began. Her hospital was overwhelmed with wounded from both sides. She worked 20-hour shifts. Talmeth watched her operate on a Kryn soldier with the same care she gave human patients. "Why do you save them?" he asked. "They're your enemy. They're wounded." Yoon didn't look up from her work. "That's all that matters right now." The Kryn commander sent another surrender demand. Admiral Han called a meeting of all senior officers. Talmeth was invited. "We can't hold out much longer," one officer said. "We're down to melee weapons on the lower levels. Food will run out in 6 days," another added. "Oxygen is cycling on minimum. People are passing out." Han listened to all of it. Then he stood. "The Kryn think we'll break. They think we'll give up. Send this response, come and take it." The officers smiled. Grim, tired smiles, but smiles nonetheless. They understood. Surrender wasn't an option. It never had been. On day 19 of the siege, the Kryn broke through. They overwhelmed the last defensive line. Admiral Han ordered everyone to the central hub. 847 people. Soldiers and civilians, wounded and healthy. The Kryn surrounded them. Talmeth's diplomatic immunity protected him. He could leave. The Kryn commander made that clear. But he stayed. He had to witness this. Admiral Han stood in front of his people. "It's been an honor," he said simply. The Kryn opened fire. Talmeth watched it all. He recorded everything, even as his hands shook and his vision blurred. The humans fought to the last. They used broken metal as weapons. They threw themselves at Kryn soldiers. They sang that old song Arirang even as they fell. When it was over, 847 humans were dead. The Kryn had taken Titan Station. But they had lost an entire hive fleet doing it. Talmeth's report that night was short. They did not surrender. They fought to the end. They died for each other. I cannot remain objective. I will not remain objective. These beings deserve more than cold observation. They deserve to be honored, the Concordat recalled him. He ignored the order. He traveled to Mars next, to the shipyards. The industrial planet worked day and night, building warships as fast as possible. He met engineer Lee Sora, a woman who had designed a new type of human vessel. It's not pretty, she told him, showing him blueprints, but it's fast to build and hits hard. We can make 10 of these in the time it takes to build one traditional cruiser. You're sacrificing quality for quantity, Talmeth observed. We're building what we need to survive. Lee's eyes were fierce. Pretty ships don't win wars. Ships that show up do. Children as young as 14 worked in the factories, Talmeth objected. The adults ignored him. You think we want kids working? One supervisor demanded. You think we like this? But if we don't build enough ships, we all die. The kids understand that better than you do. Talmeth met Lieutenant Bayek again on Mars. She had survived 23 combat missions. She was training new pilots. Most of them were teenagers. Do you ever regret staying in the fight? Talmeth asked her. Every day. Beck watched her students practice in simulators, but regret doesn't change anything. So I teach these kids how to survive. Some of them will make it. That has to be enough. Private Nam, now promoted to corporal, was also on Mars. He had been injured and was recovering. His unit had been wiped out. He was the only survivor. I should be dead, he told Talmeth. Everyone else is. Why am I alive? I don't know, Talmeth admitted. But you are. What will you do with that? Nam was quiet for a long time. I'll go back. I'll fight, because they would have done the same. Admiral Choi launched Operation Heichi 3 months after Titan Station fell. It was a desperate plan. Human forces would retreat across multiple systems, drawing the Kryn deep into human territory. Then they would strike. Talmeth watched from Admiral Choi's flagship. The humans pretended to run. The Kryn chased them. And when the Kryn were spread too thin, humanity struck everywhere at once. 15 Kryn staging areas were hit simultaneously, human sleeper cells. Civilian volunteers who had stayed behind on occupied worlds sabotaged Kryn supply lines. Resistance fighters destroyed fuel depots. Hackers crashed Kryn computer systems. In 1 week, the Kryn lost 4 hive fleets. Admiral Choi's strategy was brilliant and brutal. She used the Kryn's aggression against them. She made them overconfident. Then she made them pay. Talmeth interviewed her after the operation. How did you coordinate all of this? We planned for months. Every resistance cell, every saboteur, every attack. Choi looked tired but satisfied. The Kryn think we're primitive. They're learning otherwise. How many civilians died in those operations? Too many. Choi's expression hardened. But they volunteered. Every single one. They knew the risks. They fought anyway. That phrase kept appearing. They fought anyway. Despite the odds. Despite the cost. Despite everything. Talmeth attended Lieutenant Bayek's funeral 4 months into the war. She had been shot down protecting a civilian transport. 36 people survived because of her sacrifice. Admiral Han gave the eulogy. Talmeth stood in the crowd and realized he was crying. His species didn't cry, but he was crying anyway. Juwan was brave, Han said. But more than that, she was kind. She trained every new pilot personally. She shared her rations when supplies ran low. She made us laugh when everything seemed dark. We will remember her. We will honor her, and we will finish what she started. After the funeral, Talmeth walked alone. He had been documenting this war for 6 months. He had watched thousands of humans die. He had seen bravery and sacrifice that defied logic. He had also seen humanity's war machine evolve. They were learning, adapting. Their tactics improved with every battle. Their technology advanced at an impossible rate. They were reverse engineering Kryn equipment and making it better. Engineer Lee showed him new weapon systems. We figured out how to penetrate Kryn shields. It took us 4 months, but we did it. How? We studied every battle, every hit, every miss. We learned. Lee smiled grimly. We're very good at learning from pain. Talmeth's second report was longer than the first. He wrote about human resilience, their ability to endure, their refusal to give up even when giving up made sense. I was wrong, he wrote. This is not a war of technology or numbers. This is a war of will. The humans possess something I cannot measure or quantify. They fight not just to survive, but for each other. Every fallen. 1 year had passed since the war began. Talmuth barely recognized himself anymore. His feathers had lost their shine. He had lost weight. Other observers had left, returning to the safety of concordate space. He stayed. The war had changed. Humanity was no longer defending. They were attacking. Talmuth stood in the briefing room of the UED Indomitable Admiral Hand's flagship. Around him, human commanders planned their assault on Kryn-held territory. These were not the same desperate defenders he had met a year ago. These were hardened warriors. Operation Thunderfall begins in 48 hours, Admiral Han announced. Our objective is to liberate New Jeju and 3 other occupied colonies. Talmuth listened as they outlined the plan. It was complex, coordinated, and ruthless. The humans had learned how to fight like the Kryn, except they did it better. What about civilian casualties? Someone asked. We minimize them, General Kang said. He wore more scars now. We're not the Kryn. We don't target civilians, ever. That was the difference Talmuth had observed. Humans fought with incredible ferocity, but they had rules. Lines they wouldn't cross. It made them predictable in some ways, but it also made them stronger. He had seen Kryn soldiers surrender because they knew humans would treat them well. That never happened with other species. Most armies executed Kryn prisoners. Humans fed them. The human fleet had grown. Engineer Lee's designs were everywhere now. Fast, efficient warships that could be built in weeks. They weren't beautiful, but they worked. Talmuth had watched the shipyards. Humans worked in shifts around the clock. They slept in the factories. They ate at their workstations. The entire species had mobilized. We've built 400 new ships in 6 months, Lee told him during a rare break. We're outproducing the Kryn 3-1. How? We're motivated. Lee's smile was grim. Fear is a powerful motivator. So is revenge. But mostly, we're fighting for survival. That makes you efficient. The humans had also innovated. They had taken Kryn technology and improved it. Their weapons now penetrated Kryn shields. Their armor resisted Kryn bioweapons. They had turned the enemy's advantages into weaknesses. We learn fast, Admiral Choi had told him. We've had to. Every battle teaches us something. Every death means something. We don't waste those lessons. Director An Yuna ran human intelligence. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind like a blade. Talmuth had watched her work. She knew everything about the Kryn, their tactics, their weaknesses, their fears. They don't understand us, An explained. They think we're irrational, emotional, weak. They're right about the first 2. Wrong about the third. What do you mean? Our emotions make us strong. We fight for love, for family, for each other. The Kryn fight because the hive mind commands them. There's no passion, no personal investment. That's their weakness. Operation Thunderfall launched on schedule. Talmuth accompanied the fleet to New Jeju, the colony where this all began. The battle was swift and overwhelming. Human ships moved in perfect coordination. They had practiced this for months. Every captain knew their role. Every pilot knew their target. The Kryn defenders were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. In 6 hours, the orbital battle was over. Human forces had liberated the space around New Jeju. Admiral Han stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the planet below. Talmuth stood beside him. How do you feel? Talmuth asked. Tired. Han's voice was quiet. We won this battle. But the cost to get here, he trailed off. The ground assault began. General Kang personally led the Marines. Talmuth went with them. He had to see this. They landed in the ruins of New Jeju's capital. The Kryn had built fortifications over the human city. It looked wrong. Alien structures on human ground. The fighting was intense. House to house, street by street. But the humans had trained for this. They used tactics the Kryn couldn't predict. Small unit actions, guerrilla warfare, things humans had perfected fighting each other. Corporal Nam was there too. He had been promoted again. Sergeant now. He led a squad of 10 Marines. They moved through the city like shadows. Talmuth followed them, recording everything. He watched them clear buildings. Rescue civilians who had been hiding for months. Fight with controlled aggression. Contact, someone shouted. Kryn soldiers appeared. Nam's squad engaged immediately. It was brutal and fast. Humans used cover, coordinated fire, tactical grenades. Within minutes, the Kryn were dead or surrendering. "Sergeant Nam," Talmeth said during a brief pause, "you've become very good at this." Nam checked his rifle. "I've had a lot of practice, and does it bother you? The killing?" "Yes." Nam looked at him directly. "Every day. But if I don't do it, they'll kill people I care about. So I do what I have to do." They found the civilian survivors in underground bunkers. 140,000 people had survived by hiding. They had lived on stored food and hope for a year. When the bunker doors opened and they saw human soldiers, many of them cried. Some collapsed. Others cheered weakly. Admiral Han came down to the surface. He walked through the streets he had defended a year ago. Talmeth followed him. The city was damaged, burned, broken. But it could be rebuilt. The people were alive. That mattered more. Was it worth it? Talmeth asked. Han looked at the survivors being loaded onto transports. Children, elderly people, families. "Yes," he said simply. The human offensive continued. They pushed into Kryn space, liberating colonies and attacking military targets. But they were careful, precise. They avoided civilian casualties when possible. Talmeth accompanied a mission to the Kryn mining world of Zalthet. It was the first human invasion of actual Kryn territory. He needed to see how they would act. General Kang commanded the assault. His Marines landed and quickly secured the mining facilities. Kryn soldiers fought hard. They didn't surrender easily. But when the humans found the Kryn breeding chambers, everything stopped. "Hold fire," Kang ordered over the radio. "Those are civilians, non-combatants. The Kryn breeding chambers held their young, vulnerable, defenseless, easy targets. Kang posted guards around them, protected them. A Kryn prisoner, an officer, was brought to Kang. The insectoid looked confused. "Why did you spare them?" the Kryn officer asked in broken standard language. "They're children," Kang said. "We don't hurt children. We would kill human young. We're not you." That moment changed something. Word spread among the Kryn forces. Humans protected enemy children. It was unthinkable. Weak, or maybe it was the strongest thing possible. More Kryn began surrendering. Not many, but some. They chose human captivity over fighting to the death. Admiral Choi's intelligence network learned something important. Hive Commander Zix Thera, who had ordered the execution of Titan Station's defenders, was located. His fleet had pulled back to regroup. "We're going after him," Admiral Han announced. "He murdered 847 people in cold blood. He'll face justice." The hunt took 3 weeks. Human ships tracked Zix Thera across 5 systems. Finally, they cornered him near a gas giant. The battle was personal. Admiral Han commanded the assault personally. His fleet surrounded the Kryn flagship. They disabled its engines, boarded it. Talmeth was there when they captured Zix Thera. The Kryn commander expected to be executed immediately. That's what would happen in Kryn culture. Instead, Admiral Han looked at him with cold eyes. "You will stand trial for war crimes. You will be judged. That's the difference between us and you." Zix Thera was taken into custody, treated according to galactic law, given legal representation. The Concordat, which had done nothing to help humanity during the war, suddenly paid attention. They wanted the trial to happen on neutral ground. Ambassador Park finally got his meeting. The Concordat agreed to oversee the War Crimes Tribunal. Better late than never, Talmeth thought bitterly. But the war wasn't over. The Kryn Empire, facing defeat for the first time in its history, made a desperate decision. They recalled every Hive fleet to defend their homeworld. 8 fleets. The largest military formation they had ever assembled. Humanity's response was immediate. They called it Operation Ragnarok. The final battle. Talmeth attended the strategic planning session. Every major commander was present. Admiral Choi would lead the main fleet. Admiral Han would command the flanking forces. General Kang would lead ground forces if needed. Dr. Yoon's hospital ships would be on standby. Director An delivered the intelligence briefing. "This is it. Win here and the war is over. Lose and we lose everything." "Objections?" Admiral Choi asked. Silence. "Then we go to Kryn Prime. We end this." Talmeth wrote his 3rd report that night. His hands were steady now. He knew what he wanted to say. In 1 year, humanity has transformed from a desperate defending species into a military power that rivals the Kryn Empire. They have innovated, adapted, and overcome every obstacle. But what strikes me most is this. They have not lost their humanity.
They still weep for the fallen.
They still show mercy to defeated enemies. They still protect children, even enemy children. They fight with incredible violence, but they fight for peace. They want this war to end. Not for victory, but so they... The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kryn Prime system. Talmuth stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical displays. 272 human warships against 8 Kryn hive fleets. The entire Kryn military power concentrated in one place. Impressive, Admiral Han said quietly. They're betting everything on this defense. As are you, Talmuth observed. Yes, but we're used to betting everything. The Kryn opened communications. The Empress Mother herself appeared on screen. She was enormous, ancient, and terrifying. Her voice resonated with power. Surrender, humans. You cannot win. Leave now and we will let you survive. Admiral Choi responded. Her face was calm. We didn't come this far to turn back. Kryn Prime is the end. One way or another. The Empress Mother's mandibles clicked in anger. Then die. The channel closed. Admiral Choi opened the fleet-wide communication. Every ship. Every human. Her voice was steady. For every colony lost. For every person who died defending their homes. For Titan Station. For New Jeju. For the future we will build. Humanity stands, simple words. But they meant everything. The battle began. Talmuth had documented many battles. But nothing like this. The space around Kryn Prime became a storm of weapons fire, explosions, and dying ships. Human vessels moved with practiced coordination. They had learned from every engagement, every mistake, every death. That knowledge was encoded in their tactics now. Kryn hive fleets were powerful but predictable. They relied on overwhelming numbers and biological weapons. Humans had learned to counter both. Engineer Lee's innovations proved decisive. Human missiles penetrated Kryn shields. Human armor resisted biotoxins. Human point defense systems shot down Kryn fighters by the hundreds. But the cost was terrible. Talmuth watched ships die on both sides. Each human vessel that exploded meant hundreds of lives lost. He had met some of those crews, interviewed them, learned their names. The Courageous is gone, a tactical officer reported. The Defiant is heavily damaged. The Soul is requesting permission to ram the enemy flagship. Permission denied, Admiral Han said. Tell Soul to fall back. They're not responding, sir. Talmuth watched the Soul on the tactical display. The heavy cruiser's engines were burning at maximum. It was dying already, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches, but it was still moving. The Soul crashed into a Kryn hive fleet's command carrier. Both ships exploded in a ball of white fire. 800 crew on the Soul, someone whispered. No one else spoke. There was nothing to say. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fought with desperate efficiency. They used every trick, every tactic, every advantage they could find. General Kang's Marines boarded Kryn command carriers. They fought inside the biological ships, disabling them from within. It was brutal work, close quarters, hand to hand, but they did it. Sergeant Nam was with one of those boarding parties. Talmuth watched the helmet camera feeds. The young soldier moved through the Kryn ship with his squad, fighting, advancing, surviving. Charges set, Nam reported over the radio. Evacuating now. His squad made it out just before the carrier exploded. 6 hours into the battle, Admiral Choi's flagship, the Phoenix, took heavy fire. Talmuth saw it happening on the tactical display. The Kryn had concentrated fire on her. They wanted to kill the Steel Phoenix. They succeeded. The Phoenix's reactor went critical. There was no time to evacuate. Admiral Choi's last transmission was brief. Finish it. Then she was gone. The human fleet faltered for a moment. Their greatest tactician dead. But only for a moment. Admiral Han assumed command of the entire fleet. His voice was steady over the communication network. Admiral Choi gave everything. Honor her. Finish this. The human fleet pressed forward, harder, faster, with renewed fury. Talmuth watched Admiral Han command. The man was exhausted, grieving. But his orders were precise and effective. He coordinated 200 ships simultaneously, adjusting tactics in real time, adapting to the Kryn response. How do you do it? Talmuth asked during a brief lull. I don't think about it, Han said. I just react. Think too much and you freeze. Feel too much and you break, so I focus on the next order, the next decision, the next minute. The Kryn defense began to crack. Human forces had destroyed 3 hive fleets, damaged 4 more. The orbital defenses around Kryn Prime were failing, but 89 human ships were gone, destroyed. And the battle wasn't over. The Kryn made a final push. They threw everything they had left at the human fleet. It was desperate and uncoordinated, the action of a species that suddenly realized it might lose. Human ships met them head-on. The 2 forces collided in a massive engagement that lasted 2 hours. Ships fought at point-blank range. Ramming attacks were common on both sides. It was chaos. When it ended, the Kryn had lost, 5 hive fleets destroyed, 2 more crippled. The last intact fleet withdrew toward the planet. The human fleet followed. Kryn Prime's planetary defense grid activated. Energy weapons and missile batteries fired from the surface. But the human fleet was prepared. They had brought specialized ships just for this. Bombardment vessels, they didn't target cities. They targeted the defense grid. Military installations. Command centers. Talmeth watched the precision strikes. Humans could have destroyed cities, killed millions of civilians, but they didn't. They focused on military targets. Why not just destroy everything? A Kryn prisoner on the ship asked. He had been captured during a boarding action. Because we're not monsters, Admiral Han said simply. The Kryn defense grid went offline. The last hive fleet tried to retreat. Human fighters pursued and destroyed it. Kryn Prime was defenseless. A new transmission came. The Empress Mother again. Her voice was different now, smaller. Defeated. We surrender. Unconditionally. Please, spare our world. Admiral Han looked at the image of Kryn Prime on the view screen. A beautiful planet. Green and blue. Home to billions of Kryn civilians who had nothing to do with the war. Terms, Han said. Complete demilitarization. Reparations for all conquered species. War crimes trials for those responsible, and you will never threaten another civilization again. Agreed. Then we accept your surrender. The war was over, but the cost was staggering. Talmeth compiled the numbers with shaking hands. Human losses. 1.4 million military personnel dead. 890,000 civilians killed. 34 colonies damaged or destroyed. 89 ships lost in the final battle alone. Kryn losses, 8 million military casualties. 11 of 14 hive fleets destroyed. Their empire broken. General Kang's Marines landed on Kryn Prime to secure the surrender. Talmeth went with them. He had to see this final moment. The Empress Mother met them in the throne chamber. She was surrounded by her guards, but they were unarmed. The massive insectoid bowed her head. We surrender, she said formally. Do what you will. General Kang stepped forward. You will be treated according to galactic law. Your people will not be harmed. Those who committed war crimes will face justice. The rest will be allowed to rebuild. The Empress Mother's compound eyes studied him. You show mercy to your enemy, why? Because mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism, Kang said. We fought to stop you, not to become you. Human medics began treating wounded Kryn soldiers. Dr. Yoon, who had survived the entire war, personally operated on the Empress Mother's guards. She saved 3 of them. Sergeant Nam walked through the Kryn capital. Talmeth followed him. The young human looked at the alien city with tired eyes. It's beautiful, Nam said. Strange, but beautiful. Does it bother you? That you helped destroy their military? Yes. Nam sat down on a piece of rubble. All of this bothers me. Every death. Every battle. But it had to be done. They wouldn't stop. So we stopped them. What will you do now? Go home, find out if my sister is alive. If she is, I'll never let her go. Nam smiled weakly. And I'll try to forget. Probably won't work, but I'll try. That evening, Talmeth watched human soldiers sharing rations with Kryn civilians. The same humans who had fought with brutal efficiency hours earlier were now giving food to enemy children. This was humanity. Capable of terrible violence and profound kindness, often at the same time, Admiral Han stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Talmeth joined him. It's over, Talmeth said. This part is, Han agreed. Now comes the hard part, justice, rebuilding, peace. Do you think the Kryn will honor the surrender? They will. They understand now. We could have destroyed them. We didn't. That means something to them. What about you? What will you do? Han was quiet for a long time. I'll go home. To New Jeju, walk the streets I defended. Visit the memorials. Remember everyone who didn't make it. He paused. And I'll try to live with what I've done. What I had to do. You saved humanity. Maybe. But I sent a lot of people to their deaths doing it. That doesn't go away. The Concordat arrived the next day. They wanted to oversee the surrender, establish tribunals. Suddenly they were very interested in helping. Ambassador Park met them with cold courtesy. Where were you when we needed you? The Concordat representatives had no good answer. The War Crimes Tribunal was established. Hive Commander Zix Thara was convicted and imprisoned. Other Kryn officers faced justice. The Empress Mother was found guilty of enabling genocide, but was allowed. 10 years had passed since the war ended. Talmeth stood in the memorial park on New Jeju, watching the annual remembrance ceremony. Thousands of people gathered to honor the fallen. It happened every year on the anniversary of the first battle. Admiral Han stood beside him, retired now with gray in his hair and lines on his face. But his eyes were the same, tired but determined. Do you still have nightmares? Talmeth asked quietly. Every night, Han admitted, but they're getting better. Softer around the edges. The ceremony began. Names were read. All of them. Every soldier who died. Every civilian lost. It took 6 hours to read all the names. No one left. Everyone listened. When it was finished, a young girl played a trumpet. The melody was sad and beautiful. Talmeth recognized it. Taps. An old human military tradition. After the ceremony, Talmeth and Han walked through the rebuilt city. New Jeju looked different now. Modern buildings, parks, schools. But they had preserved some of the ruins as memorials. Reminders of what happened. Does it help? Talmeth asked. Remembering like this? Yes, Han said. We have to remember. If we forget, their deaths mean nothing. If we remember, we honor them. And maybe we learn enough to not repeat our mistakes. They stopped at the largest memorial, a wall with names carved into black stone. Thousands of names. Talmeth found Lieutenant Bayek's name. He traced it with his hand. I still miss her, Han said softly. She was the best pilot I ever knew, and one of the best people. She saved 36 lives, Talmeth said. I documented it. I know. I read your reports. All of them. They sat in silence for a while. Then Han spoke again. Did you ever regret staying? You could have left. Gone back to the Concordat. Stayed safe. Every day, Talmeth admitted. But I'm glad I stayed. Someone needed to witness, to document, to remember. Thank you, Han said simply. Over the past 10 years, Talmeth had watched humanity transform again. Not through war this time, but through peace. It was just as impressive. The colonies had been rebuilt. Better than before. Humans had learned from the war. They built stronger defenses. Better early warning systems. They prepared, hoping they would never need those preparations again. Dr. Yoon had continued her medical work. She traveled to former Kryn worlds, helping them rebuild their healthcare systems. She trained Kryn doctors, taught them human techniques. They're learning, she told Talmeth during one of his visits. Slowly, but they're learning that there's more to strength than military power. Talmeth had met her assistant, a young Kryn female named Tixara. She had been a child during the war. Now she was a doctor, working alongside the humans who had defeated her people. Dr. Yoon saved my mother, Tixara explained. During the surrender, my mother was wounded, and Dr. Yoon operated for 12 hours to save her. Why would she do that? Because that's what she does, Talmeth said. She saves people. I want to be like her, Tixara said. I want to help people, not hurt them. Engineer Lee Sora had led humanity's technological development. But instead of keeping human innovation secret, she shared them with the Kryn, with the Concordat, with everyone. Technology should help everyone, Lee explained when Talmeth questioned her. We learned so much during the war. Terrible things, but also useful things. Medical technology, faster engines, better communication. Why hoard it? Her generosity had changed the galaxy. Faster-than-light travel was safer now. Medical treatments that once took months now took days. Energy production was cleaner and more efficient. You're giving away your advantages, Talmeth observed. Military advantages, maybe. But we're building something better than military power. We're building trust. General Kang had retired from the military and opened a training academy. But it wasn't a war college. It was a defense academy. He taught other species how to protect themselves. The best way to prevent war is to be prepared for it, Kang explained to his students. But preparation isn't about aggression. It's about deterrence. If everyone can defend themselves, maybe no one needs to attack. Kryn soldiers attended his academy, former enemies learning from their conquerors. It should have been awkward. Instead, it was healing. Talmeth visited one of Kang's classes. A mixed group of humans, Kryn and 3 other species practiced defensive tactics together. "General," a Kryn student asked, "how do you forgive us? After what we did?" Kang was quiet for a moment. "I don't forgive your empire. The decisions made by leaders who sent you to kill us. But you were following orders. You were told humans were weak, primitive, worthy of conquest. You were lied to. So I don't blame you personally. I blame the system that created those lies." The student nodded slowly. "We were taught that mercy was weakness." "Then you were taught wrong," Kang said gently. "Mercy is the hardest kind of strength." Ambassador Park had become Earth's representative to the Concordat. He had pushed through reforms. The Concordat could no longer ignore species calling for help. They had to respond. Provide aid. Protect the vulnerable. It wasn't perfect. Politics never was. But it was better. "The Concordat is changing," Park told Talmeth during a diplomatic reception. "Slowly, but change is happening. And a lot of that is because of what humanity showed during the war." "What did we show?" Talmeth asked, genuinely curious. "That survival matters. That every species deserves a chance to defend itself. That observers aren't enough. Sometimes you have to act." Talmeth thought about that. He had been an observer. Then he became something more. A witness, a friend. Part of the story instead of outside it. "You're not upset that the Concordat didn't help you?" Talmeth asked. Park smiled. "Oh, I'm still angry about that." "But anger doesn't build bridges. So I use it as fuel, to make sure it never happens again." Sergeant Nam had found his sister. She had survived, hidden in the bunkers of New Jeju for a year. Their reunion had been documented by news services across human space. Now Nam worked as a counselor, helping veterans adjust to civilian life. He understood their struggles, the nightmares, the guilt, the memories that wouldn't fade. "I can't take away their pain," Nam told Talmeth, "but I can help them carry it. Show them they're not alone." That's something. Nam had married, had children, built a life. But he still attended every memorial ceremony, still visited the graves of his fallen squadmates. "They died so I could live," he explained. "I owe them this. To live well, to be happy, to make their sacrifice mean something." Talmeth had written his final report 5 years ago. It had been distributed throughout the Concordat. Required reading for all observers. Some species praised it, others criticized it for being too emotional. Too biased, Talmeth didn't care. The title of his final report was simple: Humanity at War, What I Learned by Watching Them Fight. The conclusion read, "I was sent to witness humans wage war. I thought I would document their defeat. Instead, I witnessed their triumph. But more importantly, I witnessed their humanity, a quality that means more than their species name. They are capable of terrible violence, yes, but also profound compassion. They fight with the fury of apex predators but retain the kindness of nurturers. They will sacrifice everything for those they love, yet show mercy to defeated enemies. They remember their dead. They honor their promises. They cry for their losses and then stand up and keep going. I wish I had never accepted this assignment. Not because of the horror I witnessed, but because it changed me forever. I can no longer observe with cold detachment. I have learned to feel as humans do, to care as they care, to hope as they hope, and I would not trade that knowledge for anything. The galaxy met humanity through war. Now we know them through peace. And they are teaching us what it truly means to be strong." Now, 10 years later, Talmeth sat with Admiral Han in a small cafe in New Jeju. They came here every year after the memorial ceremony. Drank coffee, talked about small things, remembered together. "What will you do now?" Han asked. "Still documenting?" "No," Talmeth said. "I'm teaching. At the Concordat's Diplomatic Academy, teaching new observers about humanity, about how to truly witness, not just record." "What do you teach them?" "That neutrality isn't the same as objectivity. That sometimes you have to care to truly understand. That the beings you're observing aren't just subjects, they're people." Han smiled. "Sounds like you've learned something." I learned it from you. From all of you. A young child approached their table. She was human, maybe 6 years old. She looked at Talmeth with curious eyes. "Why are you crying?" she asked. Talmeth touched his face. He was crying. He hadn't even noticed. The child's mother came over quickly. "I'm sorry." She's very direct. "It's okay," Talmeth said. He looked at the child. "I'm crying because I'm remembering. Remembering people who are gone. My teacher says it's okay to cry when you remember," the child said seriously. "She says it means you loved them." "Your teacher is very wise." The child's mother had a prosthetic arm. A veteran, Talmeth realized. She smiled at him. "Thank you for being here. For remembering with us." "I was there," Talmeth said. "I witnessed it. How could I not remember?" After they left, Han looked at Talmeth. "You know what that child said? That's the difference. That's what makes humans who we are. We love, we remember, we cry, and we keep going." "I know," Talmeth said. "I learned that watching you wage war."
And